The observation pod hovered silently above Earth's atmosphere as senior analyst Do-hyun carefully recorded his findings. The Kalian Collective had discovered this blue planet 3 cycles ago, and initial assessments classified humans as a primitive species despite their rudimentary space exploration. Do-hyun's 6-fingered hands moved gracefully across the holographic display as he compiled his latest report. Earth rotated slowly beneath him, a swirl of blue oceans and green-brown landmasses, partially obscured by white clouds. The beauty of the planet contrasted sharply with what the Kalians considered its primitive inhabitants. Another day, another disappointment, Do-hyun muttered to himself. He had spent 15 rotations observing human military conflicts in the region they called the Middle East. The footage showed outdated projectile weapons and rudimentary aircraft, technology the Kalians had abandoned centuries ago. The door to the observation deck slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Jiwoo entered, her tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. Like all high-ranking Kalian officials, she wore the silver uniform of the Collective's Exploration Division, her rank displayed in glowing blue symbols on her collar. "Your report is late, Analyst Do-hyun," she said, her voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. Do-hyun straightened his posture immediately. "My apologies, Commander. I wanted to include the latest observations from the human conflict zones." He gestured toward the main screen, which displayed satellite imagery of Earth's various regions. "They're fractured into hundreds of governing bodies," Do-hyun reported. "Their technological development is inconsistent, and their wars suggest poor cooperation abilities." He pulled up additional footage, showing human vehicles stuck in traffic, factories releasing pollutants, and soldiers fighting with what the Kalians considered laughably simple weapons. Commander Jiwoo nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the planet below. The subtle ridges along her forehead, a mark of pure Kalian lineage, creased slightly as she frowned. "The Council has authorized a small mining operation on their moon. The humans won't even notice our presence. The preliminary surveys indicate significant deposits of rare minerals in the lunar crust," Do-hyun agreed, pulling up the geological survey results. "The extraction should be simple and highly profitable." From the back of the command center, a small voice interrupted their conversation. "Commander, if I may speak?" Do-hyun turned, surprised. Junior Analyst Minji stood hesitantly near the environmental controls, a datapad clutched in her hands. She was newly assigned to the Earth observation mission, and Do-hyun had barely noticed her presence until now. Commander Jiwoo raised an eyebrow. "You have something to add, Junior Analyst?" Minji stepped forward, her youthful features set in a serious expression. "Commander, I've observed unusual patterns in their adaptation curves. They solve problems and differently than we do." She approached the main console and, after a hesitant glance at Do-hyun, uploaded her own dataset. The screen filled with comparison, charts tracking technological development across various species the Kalians had encountered. "Most species follow predictable patterns," Minji explained, pointing to several lines on the chart. "But humans show these unexpected leaps. Look here." She highlighted a section of the human development line that showed a sudden steep climb. "They went from basic flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. That's unprecedented." Do-hyun scoffed. "Beginner's luck. They still fight their wars with chemical explosives," Minji persisted. "But their communication technologies have advanced exponentially in just the last 30 years, and their adaptation to new circumstances is remarkable. When faced with problems, they don't just apply existing solutions, they create entirely new approaches." Commander Jiwoo studied the data briefly, then waved her hand dismissively. "Your concern is noted," she replied, "but the assessment stands. Proceed with lunar base construction." She turned to Do-hyun. "Have the mining ships deploy immediately. I want extraction to begin within 2 cycles." Do-hyun nodded, sending the commands through the ship's communication system. On the view screen, 6 large Kalian vessels detached from the main fleet and moved toward Earth's moon, their stealth systems activating as they passed the observation pod. As the Kalian ships deployed to the dark side of Earth's moon, nobody noticed the small satellite that tracked their movements, broadcasting data back to a hidden facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. There, in a room filled with scientists and military personnel, a human woman watched the alien ships with narrowed eyes, already formulating humanity's response to the unwelcome visitors. In the observation pod, Minji returned to her station, her concerns unheard as the Kalians prepared to make their first and perhaps greatest mistake in judging the capabilities of humanity. 6 months after establishing the lunar mining base, Do-hyun was puzzled by the humans' reaction to their presence. He sat in the observation pod's analysis chamber, surrounded by screens displaying incoming transmissions from Earth. The humans had detected them much sooner than expected, but their response was not what any Kalian had predicted. Do-hyun replayed. One of the messages, watching as a human female in formal attire spoke directly to the camera. The translation software converted her words to Kalian script at the bottom of the screen. We extend greetings to our visitors and wish to establish peaceful communication. We recognize your technological superiority and seek only understanding between our worlds. Similar messages had been arriving for weeks now. Do-hyun compiled them into a report and requested an urgent meeting with Commander Jiwoo. The commander arrived promptly, her silver uniform immaculate as always. The past 6 months of successful mining operations had put her in good standing with the High Council, and she carried herself with even more confidence than before. "You requested my presence, analyst?" she asked, settling into the seat beside him. Do-hyun gestured to the screens. "They've sent diplomatic messages in 17 different languages," he told Commander Jiwoo. "They speak of peace and cultural exchange." He pulled up additional screens showing humans gathering in large numbers in major cities across the planet. They carried signs with various symbols, some depicting crude representations of Kalian ships, others showing human and alien figures standing together. "They're not panicking," Do-hyun said with confusion. "They're organizing rallies calling for communication with us." Commander Jiwoo studied the screens briefly, then shrugged. "A primitive response driven by fear," Jiwoo concluded. "Continue operations." She stood to leave, but Do-hyun persisted. "Commander, this doesn't match any of our predictive models for primitive species encountering superior technology. They should be either hiding or preparing for war." "Perhaps they recognize the futility of resistance," Jiwoo replied. "Their behavior is irrelevant. The mining quotas have been increased by 20%. Focus on your duties, analyst." As Jiwoo left, Do-hyun couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The humans were too calm, too coordinated in their response. Far below, in a facility buried deep beneath mountains, engineer Hyunwoo carefully removed another component from the damaged Kalian probe. The small scout ship had been shot down over a remote ocean 3 months ago, a feat that should have been impossible given Earth's defensive capabilities. But human military scientists had adjusted satellite-based energy weapons based on observations of Kalian ship frequencies. Hyunwoo held up the propulsion module to the light, its crystal core still faintly glowing with energy. "Their propulsion system uses principles we theorized but haven't implemented," he told General Yunju, who stood watching with arms crossed. "With some modifications, we could adapt this to our prototype vessels." The general nodded, her expression serious. "How long?" 2 months, maybe less," Hyunwoo replied. "Their materials are advanced, but the principles are understandable. It's like they developed a different branch of physics than we did." "Work faster," General Unju said. "The diplomacy team will keep them distracted while we prepare. Share your findings with the other research centers immediately." Across the globe, human scientists worked tirelessly, sharing discoveries through encrypted channels. While the Kalians saw only disorganized nations, humanity had quietly formed an unprecedented coalition. Old enemies now worked together, pooling resources and knowledge with a single purpose: to defend their world from potential colonization. In Beijing, scientists reverse-engineered Kalian energy shielding. In London, communications experts cracked the aliens' transmission codes. In Nairobi, materials specialists synthesized compounds similar to Kalian hull metals. Each breakthrough was shared instantly with all coalition members, moving human technology forward at an unnatural pace. Back on the observation pod, junior analyst Minji worked alone during the night cycle. She had been monitoring Earth's energy outputs for weeks, noting subtle but significant changes. Something wasn't matching the baseline readings they had established. When they first arrived, she focused her scanners on a region in the southern hemisphere, where energy fluctuations had been most pronounced. The readings suddenly spiked, showing patterns disturbingly similar to Kalian technology signatures. Minji ran to the command center, her heart racing. Commander Jiwoo was there, reviewing mining reports. "Commander," Minji gasped, "I've detected anomalies in Earth's energy grid. They're advancing faster than projected. We need to reassess." Jiwoo looked up with irritation. "Junior analyst, your fascination with these primitives is becoming disruptive." "But Commander," Minji insisted, bringing up her data on the main screen, "these readings indicate they're adapting our technology. Look at these power signatures. They match our propulsion systems." As they argued, alarm signals suddenly blared throughout the station. On the main view screen, 3 objects rapidly approached the lunar base from Earth, but her warning came too late. The objects, now clearly visible as spacecraft using modified Kalian technology, accelerated toward the moon. The first phase of humanity's response had begun, and the Kalians were completely unprepared. The first indication something was wrong came when 3 unidentified vessels appeared near the lunar base using propulsion signatures matching Kalian technology. The alarm systems blared throughout the command center as tracking systems locked onto the approaching ships. Do-Yun rushed to his station, fingers flying across the control panel as he pulled up detailed scans of the vessels. Their design was unfamiliar, sleeker than Kalian ships with visible modifications, but the energy signatures were unmistakable. "Impossible," whispered Do-Hyun as the ships approached. "They couldn't have developed this so quickly." "Commander." Jiwoo strode into the command center, her face tight with concern. "Report," she demanded. 3 vessels approaching from Earth," Do-Hyun explained, his voice shaking slightly. "They're using propulsion technology similar to our own, but the design appears to be human." "That cannot be," Jiwoo said, but the evidence was on the screen before her. "Raise shields. Prepare defensive measures." Before they could act, all communication screens in the base activated simultaneously. A human female in a dark uniform appeared, her expression calm and determined. "Attention Kalian mining operation," she said, her words translated by the base's systems. "This is General Yunju of the Earth Defense Coalition. The lunar base is now under Earth jurisdiction. Your personnel will be evacuated safely if no resistance is offered." Stunned silence fell over the command center. The human ships had stopped at a precise distance, just outside the range of Kalian defensive weapons, but close enough to strike if necessary. "They're bluffing," one officer suggested. "Their weapons can't possibly penetrate our shields." Commander Jiwoo studied the screen, her mind racing. "Open a channel," she ordered. When the connection was established, she addressed the human general. "This base operates under the authority of the Kalian Collective. Your species has no claim to this moon." General Yunju smiled slightly. "We've monitored your mining operation for months. We've studied your technology. We know exactly what your shields can withstand." As if to demonstrate, one of the human ships fired a precision beam that passed through the Kalian shields as if they weren't there. The beam struck a small uninhabited storage building, vaporizing it instantly. "The next target will be your main reactor," the general continued. "You have 30 minutes to begin evacuation procedures." Commander Jiwoo cut the transmission. "Contact the High Council immediately," she ordered, her voice tight with anger and fear. 3 days later, on the Kalian homeworld, an emergency session of the High Council convened. The chamber was massive, with 7 senior councillors seated on elevated platforms around a central presentation area. The walls displayed images of the lunar base, now fully under human control. Council leader Tai Yong, his age evident in the deep ridges on his forehead, leaned forward in his seat. "How did a pre-interstellar species neutralize our base?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Commander Jiwoo, explain this failure." Commander Jiwoo stood rigid in the center of the chamber. "The humans displayed technology they should not possess. They somehow adapted our own systems against us. Impossible, another counselor scoffed. No species has ever reversed our technology so quickly. And yet, Taeyong said grimly, our lunar base is lost, with all its valuable equipment and resources now in human hands. There was one analyst who predicted unusual human adaptation patterns, Jiwoo admitted reluctantly. Junior analyst Minji. All. Eyes turned to the young Kalian, who now stood nervously at the edge of the chamber. Taeyong gestured for her to step forward. You foresaw this? He asked. Minji took a deep breath and stepped into the center of the chamber. Not specifically, Council Leader, but I observed patterns in human development that didn't match our models. Explain, Taeyong commanded. Minji, now brought before the Council, spoke firmly. Humans don't think like us. They don't advance linearly. When faced with challenges, they make creative leaps we wouldn't consider. She activated the central display, showing human technological progression charts. Where we build on established principles methodically, humans sometimes skip steps entirely, finding unexpected solutions. They also share knowledge across their entire species, despite their political divisions. Once they captured a single piece of our technology, thousands of their scientists began working on it simultaneously. What would you suggest we do? Asked a female counselor. We must reassess everything we thought we knew about them, Minji replied. They are not primitive, they're simply different. And now they have our technology, which they'll continue to adapt in ways we might not predict. As debate raged in the council chamber, humans were already reverse engineering Kalian shield technology and weapons systems, preparing for the response they knew would come. In a facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Hyunwoo worked alongside dozens of scientists from around the world, methodically disassembling the propulsion systems from the captured lunar base. Their mistake, he told General Yunju as they observed the work, was thinking that because we hadn't done something, we couldn't do it. They never considered that perhaps we simply chose different technological paths. Will we be ready when they return? The general asked. Hyunwoo nodded confidently. They'll expect to face the technology they left behind. Instead, they'll encounter something new, something neither human nor Kalian but stronger than both. The Kalian attack fleet emerged from hyperspace, expecting to overwhelm Earth's defenses. 30 warships, each larger than the largest human aircraft carrier, materialized in precise formation between Earth and its moon. Their sleek silver hulls gleamed in the sunlight as they positioned themselves for the assault. On the command deck of the flagship, Fleet Commander Junho stood tall, his decorated uniform displaying countless honors from previous campaigns. He had conquered 3 other worlds before, all of them far more advanced than Earth had been just months ago. This mission would be simple, a show of Kalian might to punish the humans for their insolence. Tactical display, Junho ordered, and a 3-dimensional map of Earth appeared before him. The junior officers worked efficiently at their stations, preparing for the attack. Curious, said the sensor officer. I'm detecting an unusual energy grid surrounding the planet. Junho stepped closer to examine the readings. Where they had expected primitive satellite defenses, they found a sophisticated defensive grid, strengthened with adapted Kalian technology. Hundreds of platforms orbited Earth in perfect synchronization, each emitting familiar energy signatures. Impossible, Junho muttered. They've deployed our own shield technology. Sir, the communications officer interrupted, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Ignore it, Junho replied dismissively. Prepare to demonstrate our power. Target their largest military installation. The weapons officers input the commands, and the massive forward cannons of the flagship began charging, glowing with blue energy. The rest of the fleet moved into attack formation behind the flagship. All ships report ready, Commander, his second-in-command announced. Junho nodded. Begin the primary assault. The flagship fired its main cannon, a beam of concentrated energy streaking toward Earth's surface. But the beam dissipated harmlessly against the defensive grid, its energy absorbed and redirected. Before Junho could order a second attack, warning. Alarms blared across the command deck. The main screen filled with error messages as systems throughout the ship began failing. Report, Junho demanded. Sir, our weapons are offline, one officer called out. Navigation systems failing. Engineering. Reports engine shutdown, another added. Life support switching to emergency reserves. Around the flagship, the rest of the fleet reported similar issues. One by one, each ship lost power to its critical systems. Only life support and basic functions remained operational. Fleet Commander Junho could only watch in horror as his ship's systems began shutting down one by one. Somehow the humans had infiltrated their command protocols. How is this possible? He demanded, slamming his fist on the console as view screens throughout the fleet activated simultaneously. On every screen across all 30 ships, the same human female appeared. She wore a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia. General. Yeonju, the same officer who had commanded the takeover of the lunar base. Greetings, Fleet Commander, she said, her voice calm and measured. As you've discovered, aggression against Earth will not succeed. Junho's face flushed with anger. What have you done to our ships? The human general smiled slightly. We've studied your systems extensively, she explained calmly. Your command. Protocols contained vulnerabilities we were able to exploit. We could destroy your fleet, but instead offer terms for peaceful coexistence. This is impossible, Junho insisted. Our technology is centuries beyond yours. That was true, General Yeonju acknowledged, but we adapt quickly. When we recovered your lunar base intact, we gained access to your database, your communications, systems, and your technical specifications. We learned more about your civilization in 3 months than you learned about ours in 3 years. She leaned closer to the camera. We have no desire for war, Commander. Your crew will remain safe. We're transmitting terms for a peaceful resolution. I suggest you review them carefully. The transmission ended, replaced by a document written in perfect Kalian script. Junho read it with growing disbelief. The humans weren't demanding surrender, but partnership. They offered technological exchange, cultural missions, and mutual defense agreements. Back on the Kalian homeworld, as news spread of the military failure, riots erupted in major cities. Centuries of believing in their inherent superiority over all other species had made the news of defeat incomprehensible to many citizens. The foundation of their society, technological superiority, had crumbled overnight. In the High Council, chamber emergency sessions ran continuously. Councillors argued bitterly, some demanding immediate technological development to counter the human threat, others insisting on diplomatic resolution. Council leader Taeyong stood in the center of the chamber, looking far older than he had just days before. Bring analyst Minji, he ordered, silencing the arguments around him. When the young analyst entered, the chamber grew quiet. She had been promoted after her warnings about human adaptability had proven correct, but few had expected the situation to deteriorate so quickly. Minji was summoned by the desperate council. Help us understand them, Taeyong pleaded. Our world is falling apart. Minji looked around at the worried faces of the most powerful Kalians in existence, now looking to her for guidance. The humans don't want to destroy us, she said quietly. That's the first thing you must understand. They could have annihilated our fleet, but they chose not to. She activated the central display, showing the terms the humans had offered. This isn't surrender, it's an invitation. They see value in cooperation that we never considered. How do we proceed? Taeyong asked, his voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. Minji took a deep breath. We begin by acknowledging that we were wrong about them, and then we learn from them just as they learned from us. 1 year after the failed assault, Minji walked through the first Kalian Human Cultural Exchange Center built on Kalian soil. The building itself represented the new relationship between their species, its architecture blending the sweeping, crystalline structures favored by Kalians with practical human design elements. Natural light streamed through translucent panels, illuminating displays of art, science, and history from both worlds. Minji had changed over the past year. Promoted from junior analyst to chief diplomatic liaison, she now wore the formal robes of a high government official. But the change went deeper than her title or clothing. She had witnessed the fall and rebirth of her civilization, all because they had underestimated a species they considered primitive. Beside her walked Ambassador Sunho, the human representative who had been instrumental in negotiating the peace settlement. He was older than many human diplomats, with grey streaks in his dark hair and lines around his eyes that deepened when he smiled. Unlike many humans, he had learned to speak the Kalian language rather than relying on translation devices. They paused before a large window overlooking the capital city. Minji gestured to the skyline, where construction crews worked to rebuild structures damaged during the riots. "My people believed strength came from technological advancement alone," Minji explained. "We never considered that your adaptability, creativity, and willingness to cooperate under pressure might be greater strengths." She remembered the chaos after news of the fleet's defeat had spread. Thousands of Kalians had taken to the streets, unable to process that their perceived superiority had been proven false. Ancient institutions had crumbled in weeks. The rigid hierarchical structure that had governed Kalian society for millennia had given way to something new, something still taking shape. Sunho nodded. "And we learned that progress isn't just measured in weapons and ships. Your art, your philosophical systems, they've enriched us too." He pointed to a nearby display where human visitors studied ancient Kalian mathematical texts. "Your understanding of higher dimensional geometry has revolutionized our transportation systems, and your musical traditions." He smiled. "My daughter now plays a Kalian harmonic instrument. She says it creates emotions human music never could." They continued walking through the exhibition halls, passing groups of Kalian and human visitors. Children from both species played together in an interactive science area, their laughter bridging the biological differences between them. In another section, Kalian elders taught human students the intricate movements of ceremonial dances that had been performed for 10,000 years. Outside the center windows, they could see reconstruction efforts throughout the capital city. The riots had subsided, but Kalian society was forever changed. The old council had been dissolved, replaced by a more representative government that included younger voices like Minji's. Trade routes between Earth and the Kalian homeworld brought new ideas along with goods and technology. "We misjudged humanity," Minji admitted, "and our world paid the price. But perhaps what emerges will be better than what came before." She thought of Dohyun and Commander Jiwoo, both now working on joint scientific missions. Their initial dismissal of humans had given way to genuine respect. Even Fleet Commander Junho, after months of resistance, had eventually acknowledged that the humans' mercy had been strength, not weakness. They reached the center's observation deck, which offered a view of the spaceport beyond the city limits. Several ships were visible on the landing pads, some with the sleek designs favored by Kalians, others with the more practical human aesthetics, and a few that represented true collaboration between the species' engineers. "Next week's launch will be historic," Sunho remarked, pointing to the largest vessel. "The first true joint mission to unexplored space." The ship he indicated was unlike any that had flown before. It incorporated both Kalian propulsion technology and human adaptive navigation systems. Its crew would be evenly divided between the species, with Minji serving as cultural liaison and Sunho as human diplomatic representative. In orbit above, Kalian and human ships prepared for a joint mission to unexplored space, the first of many collaborative ventures between species who had moved from adversaries to cautious allies. The mission would venture beyond the boundaries of previously charted systems, seeking new life forms and resources that could benefit both worlds. "The universe is vast," Sunho said. "Better to explore it together than to face it alone." Minji nodded, thinking of how close their species had come to devastating war. One small decision, the humans choosing mercy over vengeance, had altered the destiny of two civilizations. "We still have much to learn from each other," she replied. "This is just the beginning." As they turned to leave, Minji noticed a small display she hadn't seen before. It contained fragments of the original Kalian probe that humans had captured, the first piece of alien technology they had reverse-engineered. Beside it sat the communication device that had delivered the Kalians' first dismissive assessment of humanity. The artifacts stood as a reminder of pride and arrogance, but also of the remarkable journey toward understanding. Two species meeting. Across the gulf of space, had moved from judgment to cooperation. The stars awaited them both.